You're watching Rurouni K95's anime review on The Place Promised in Our Early Days. Hi, Ruronis. This is your pal Rurouni K95 here. Today's anime review, we get to cover another anime movie that was released on November 20th, 2004. For today's anime review is The Place Promised in Our Early Days. The Place Promised in Our Early Days is a 2004 Japanese anime film written and directed and produced and cinematographed, edited, and storyboarded by Makoto Shinkai in his feature film debut set out several years earlier in the alternate history where the Soviet Union occupies half of Japan. What this movie is about. So without any further ado, which is right here, right now, let's review The Place Promised in Our Early Days. So let's begin. After the separation of Japan in 1974, the northern island of Hokkaido, or Azo as it is called in the anime, is occupied by the Union, referring to as the Soviet Union, what you see in The Place Promised in Our Early Days. In the same year, the Union begins constructing of a strange tower on the Hokkaido, designed by a scientist named Ikusun Tsukinoe. The anime follows the story of three friends living in Aomori in northern Japan. The two boys, Hiroki Fujisawa and Takuya Shirakawa, both child prodigies, and one girl, Sayuri Sawatari. In 1996, the three are in ninth grade, their last year of middle school, and they are fascinated by the Hokai Tower visible across the Tsugaru Strait to the north. Sayuri becomes close friends with the two boys. The boys find a crashed maritime self-defense force drone plane and work on rebuilding the plane with the support of Mr. Okabe, their boss at the military plant. The three teenagers promise to fly one day to Hokkaido to visit the tower. However, before they can do this, Sayuri most seriously disappears during the summer. 3 years later comes Takuya and Hiroki have stopped working on the plane, having taken different paths after the grief they suffered at Sayuri's disappearance. Takuya is working as a psychiatrist at an Alliance scientific facility sponsored by the United States National Security Agency, researching the parallel universes alongside Mrs. Maki Asahara. Under the supervision of Professor Tomizawa, they know that the Hokkaido Tower, which began operating in 1996, replaces matter around it with matter from the other universes. But they do not know yet to know why it does this for only 2 km radius. Takuya becomes involved with the old Ulita Liberation Front after he learns that Mr. Okabe is its leader. His factory workers are the agents of the organization. Yeah. Okabe signs Takuya on for an excursion to Azo with Ulita. Sayuri is revealed to have been hospitalized over the past 3 years, having developed an extreme form of narcolepsy. She has been sleeping continuously for most of the 3 years. Her mind is trapped in an unpopulated parallel universe where she is all alone. Tomizawa has discovered that she is somehow connected to the Union's research into parallel universes and the Hokkaido Tower's ability to change the surrounding land into an alternate possibilities. But Tomizawa keeps this information as well as her whereabouts secret from Takuya initially. Tomizawa is secretly working with the Olita Liberation Front and lets Mr. Okabe know about Sayuri, while Mr. Okabe reveals that the Olita Liberation Front plans to bomb the Hokkaido Tower to incite war against the Union. hoping that this will lead to the reunification of Japan. Yeah. Takuya finally learns the most of likely scenario through his co-worker that Sayuri has been used was used by her grandfather, a Union psychicist physicist, to channel all of the tower's unstoppable dimension, creating energy somewhere other than the Earth. The implication of him not having done so likely, resulting in the dimension creating chain reactions around the tower to continue growing in the area until it, it developed the whole world. Saddened, he goes back to the old warehouse where he and Hiroki were working on the plane, only to find Hiroki, who wants Takuya to help him complete with the plane to save Sayuri. He coldly points a gun at Hiroki and as him choose between Sayuri and the world without waiting for an answer, walking away in pain. With Akobe's guidance, Takuya locks up his co-worker and takes Sayuri away from the NSA compound. Takuya and Hiroki finally come back together, work on the plane. Takuya helps to finish the final programming of the plane as they plan, using the cover the soon coming declaration war against Izo to fly to the tower and destroy it before it raise affects everything on the Earth, which in turn will save Sayuri. By this time, the plane only seats two, so Takuya allows Hiroki to pilot the plane and fulfill their childhood promise, which is almost to their credibility, which is irrepressible. Hiroki manages to fly the plane across the strait to the tower, carrying Sayuri and a missile provided by the Olita Liberation Front. When Sayuri finally awakens while the plane circles the tower activates and immediately begins to transform the surrounding area, particularly what you expect to see what is going on in this anime movie, like the place promised in our early days as well, because the tower activates immediately transforms to begin the and to transform the surrounding area, where the area, especially the area under the transformation, grows. Yeah, to encompass much of Hokkaido. In the last few minutes of her coma, which is almost not in a good way, Sayuri realizes that awakes, when she awakes, she will lose all of her memories of her dreams of the past 3 years. Any certain anime character have lose their memories and they couldn't remember which memory, as was to many other animes that I mentioned in the past in my previous anime reviews. But we'll come to that in just a few questionable mentions in just a moment. And of the past 3 years, and thus upon waking, she weeps because unknowingly she lost the memory of her love for Hiroki. Flying back, Hiroki fires the missile, destroying the tower and stopping the matter transformation. Above all this, the film ends with Hiroki vowing to save Sayuri, that they will start their relationship anew, which is gotten back together as they noticed, if they will. And that's my plot, how I explained about the place promised in our early days. I mean, because when she was awakened, the reasonable question part about any certain character have lost their memories, particularly, as well as looking back on my previous anime review on Please Teacher, there is basically difference between any certain character have lost the memories and they couldn't remember what memories they had, as probably part of any certain as well. Yeah. So that's the question. The real question, particularly, is there are many certain characters from any certain anime have lost a memory, which is a serious thing. The film includes several references to other literary works and themes such as separation and dream. The poem read by Sayuri in class is Eikutsu no Asa, which translates as Morning of the Last Farewell. from the poem collection Haru to Shura, which is Spring and Asura, by the well-known Japanese writer named Kenji Miyazawa. It was written on the occasion of the premature death of his sister Toshi Miyazawa. Furthermore, during the summer sequence in the film, Sayuri is seen reading a novel titled The Net Involved in a Dream by Morishita Sake. Although the author is fictional, and a book of the same name exists by a similarly named poet by the name Hoshio Sakake, a reference to the director's previous work is made. When Takuya and Hiroki meet at the station, they see a cat which Takuya calls Chobi, the name of the cat from She and Her Cat, which is particularly another anime directed by Makoto Shinkai, which is probably the same director who directed The Place Promised in Our Early Days, directed the same OVA, which is She and Her Cat, particularly. In the same anime, because, both were directed by Makoto Shinkai as well. That's the thing. And yes, this did got award. This anime movie, was received special distinction feature film category at the Seoul Comics and Animation Festival in 2005. And yes, this movie, The Place Promised in Our Early Days, was released on November 20th, 2004, particularly around the same time as the final season of the original Inuyasha was airing at the time as well. Unlike many other certain anime titles as well, unlike his short film, Voices of a Distant Star, which was largely made by Shinkai on his own, The Place Promised in Our Early Days is a full-scale production as reflected by the better animation quality and the longer overall length. It has been broadcast across Japan by the anime satellite television network Animax. The film was licensed for a North American release by ADV Films when it was first released on home video, especially when it was released on DVD as well. Come to think of it, there is also particularly can you imagine if Sentai Filmworks would have gotten a Blu-ray release or DVD and Blu-ray release for The Place Promised in Our Early Days? I don't know if it may be available soon. Even if they did, then it will be quality remastered, particularly from the original home video remasters from the original ADV Films release for an anime movie like The Place Promised in Our Early Days as well. Even if it's available, especially as well. Come to think of it, this anime movie is basically to the extent to Your Name and The Girl Who Leapt Through Time as well. And also The Garden of Words and 5 centimeters per second as well. And yes, this anime movie was directed by Makoto Shinkai, who's known for The Voices of a Distant Star, 5 centimeters per second, Children Who Chase Lost Voices, The Garden of Words, Weathering with You, and Your Name, because it's probably the same director who worked on 5 centimeters per second and Your Name, because this anime movie was basically directed by the same director who worked on 5 centimeters per second and Your Name, which is Makoto Shinkai as well. If you want to look for a Makoto Shinkai movie to experience how you appreciate, give The Place Promised in Our Early Days a watch. So that's going to be it for my anime review on The Place Promised in Our Early Days for today's anime review. Thank you for watching, and before we go, here's my thoughts on this. When I first watched this anime movie, I really knew that this was directed by the same director who brought you Voices of a Distant Star and 5 centimeters per second and Your Name, I believe. Come to think of it, this is particularly my favorite Makoto Shinkai movie. If you haven't seen this movie, give The Place Promised in Our Early Days a watch. Hope to subscribe for content. My anime plan link in the description below. You can share this video on your Twitter, Facebook if you have Twitter, Facebook account, and all of social media. Be sure to give this video a thumbs up by clicking on the like button on this video. Feel free to leave in the comments in the comment section. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, RuRoniK95. Feel free to join my channel, especially if you're new to my channel. Hit the notifications bell button. Be sure to get notified. Keep it otaku for this anime review, and I got another anime review coming up next.
Stay tuned for my next anime review. I got another Dragon Ball related anime once again for tomorrow's anime review on Dragon Ball Curse of the Blood Rubies. Stay tuned for my next anime review on Dragon Ball Curse of the Blood Rubies, because you won't want to miss another anime review.